We already have a user in our database, but even after that, when we try the username and password, this is not working. What is the reason behind that? We will go to Solution Explorer and let me minimize the web project. Inside the identity project, let's open up the account controller. Now when we have to sign in a user, we will be working with Sign In Manager, User Manager, and Role Manager. But you can see right here, we do not use any of those. We are just using the test user store. These are the test files that are provided with the identity server, but we actually need to implement the sign in sign out feature. So for that we will require the user manager, role manager, as well as sign in manager using dependency injection. So let me add all three of those. User manager will be on T user, so we have application user. Sign in manager will also be on T user, and role manager will be on the identity role. And then we have to add all three of those in dependency injection. So let me do that right here. Perfect. We don't need this. And that looks good. So we will have to modify a few things that we're doing incorrectly using the test user. Let's first start with the login functionality right here. If the model state is valid, we want to sign them in if the username and password is valid. So let me minimize this and we will check here. Variable result is equal to await underscore sign in manager dot. We have the password sign in async method which expects model dot username, model dot password, and model dot remember login along with logout on failure. Let me set this to false for now. Then we will check what is the result. If result is successful, that means everything was valid. Then you can see right here we are raising events, and these events are being raised from the identity server. So if the login is successful, we will raise an event. So underscore user manager dot find by name async, and we will find that user object based on model dot username. Once we find that, we will trigger an event dot. We have the raise async. We will say new. We already have new user login success event provided by the identity server, and here we have to pass user.username, comma user.id followed by the name. So that name is first name plus user.last name. We will just add a space between both of those fields. Perfect. Let me add this in a new line so it is much clearer to understand. Then we don't care about interactive, but the client ID, we will set that to based on the context. If that is not null, we will go to client.clientID. After that, we will check here if context is not null. If that is the case, we will return redirect, and we have the return URL. This will happen because if context is not null, that means we can trust the model.return URL. If that is null, then we can check if URL.is local URL because we don't want to redirect to some fishy URL. We will check if this is a local URL, we will return redirect, and we will redirect to model.return URL. These are just some of the things that you have to be careful with security. If you don't use that, everything will work, but your application will be vulnerable to attacks. Then in the else if, we will check if string.is null or empty, model.return URL. If this is the case, then return redirected to the default page. And if none of this is true, then we don't trust the return URL. It might be fishy URL. So in that case, we will raise an event for error. We don't need this, we will remove that. And we will raise the event. Right here, we can just add another else condition. and we can throw an exception. Perfect. So this looks good. Next we have the logout here. The logout get looks good, but inside the logout post, we want to sign in async. So rather than this local sign out async, we will say await underscore sign in manager dot. We have the sign out async method. So the logout looks good. Let me minimize the method that we have already modified. We already did the login post. Login get looks good. Perfect. We don't need to modify this built-in methods. Let me minimize those. And with this, we can see that inside here, we don't have the register method that is implemented. For that, we will have to write quite a bit of code. Let's do that in the next video. Before we do that in the next video, let me run the application and try to see if our login works. And great, you can see this time the login was successful. We have the logout page and we also see the name. So everything is working as expected right now.